Finding the bell. In 1890, Russian scientist Pavlov performed a landmark experiment. He took a dog and showed it food. The dog began to salivate profusely. Now this is an inbuilt reflex. This reflex is hardwired or programmed as we now understand within us. So if you show even a human being, there will be salivation in the mouth. This works for efficiency because it starts the digestion process. The amylase enzyme in the mouth starts the process as soon as the food is seen. It triggers the acid and the pepsin, and the entire cycle of digestion is now ready to receive the food so that it functions efficiently. Now at this point, what he did is he added something to this pre-program. Every time he gave food to the dog, he also rang the bell. This he repeated a number of times. After about a month, what he did is he removed the food from the vision and now only rung the bell. What was then observed, something that we know now, is that the dog began to salivate as profusely as he did when he saw the food. And now when you repeated this and kept showing him the bell, the salivation would continue. What we understand with neurological research is that the brain functions in the form of neuronal circuits. Every action and every new learning is on the basis of a circuit. So we are born with an inbuilt circuit: food, see, food smell, salivate. Now as we are learning new things, we learn them also by forming these circuits. For example, as children, as a baby, we don't know what a dog is. So our neuron in the eye sees this triangular shape. The touch of that wet tongue is picked up by the sensory neuron on the skin. From the eye, this shape goes into the brain. The wet touch goes into the brain. The feel of the fur goes into the brain. The woof goes into the brain. The tail and the legs also go into the brain. Each of these different neurons stimulate a neuronal circuit, each observation, each sensory input being part of a different neuron. So now when we recognize a dog, basically the circuit that's running in our brain is fur, wet tongue, woof, triangular face, four legs, tail. And this completes our circuit and we say this is a dog. Now the beauty of this is that even if you trigger any one point here, the entire circuit starts running. Which means even if we hear now woof, we will say dog. Or if you feel the touch of that tongue, you will say dog. Because this entire circuit, which has been run many times, now becomes part of our program, now becomes part of our hardwire. And every time you just stimulate any one of these, the entire circuit starts running. And this is exactly what happened when Pavlov introduced the bell into this circuit. So food, saliva, dog. Food, saliva, dog. This is an efficient inborn circuit. Now he introduced the bell, which has nothing to do with this circuit. It has no connection and does not add any efficiency. But in that particular dog, this bell has got hardwired into the circuit. What does this now have to do with our discussion on health, disease and homeopathy? What I would like you to do now at this point is to change the circuit a little bit, to introduce into this circuit a human child instead of a dog, which means we have a human baby who's shown food and salivation happens in his mouth, right? This is natural. Again, he doesn't drool, but there is salivation. Now imagine that this 5-month-old baby coincidentally lives just next to a school. He lives in a disciplined household, which means that his food timings are pretty disciplined. Coincidentally, and understandably, he is served food at the same time as the bell is rung in the school. 9 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 1 o'clock and 4 o'clock when the school stops. Thus in this child, the bell becomes part of his circuit of the food, digestive system and bell. So every time now there is this food bell, his digestive system starts. Nothing happens, it's all fine. But let's say at the age of 30, he takes a job as a station master, and we're now talking about, say, the 1960s, 1970s, where every time the train will now enter the station, you can imagine what's going to happen. Every time that train enters, there is a ringing ting 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 sound. Every time the train leaves, there is a ting 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 sound, a ringing of the bell. And what happens to this station master? His pre-programmed circuit gets active, which means that every time now he hears the bell, a train comes in or train leaves, which could be every 15 minutes, every 20 minutes, every half an hour, his entire digestive process starts. His acid, his pepsin starts running in his system. With the result, he's hungry all the time. So either he'll stuff his face, become obese, get diabetes, lifestyle diseases like diabetes and blood pressure, or there will be no food. He won't eat, but the acid and the pepsin will keep getting produced. The end result, you can imagine. Absolutely right. He will have acidity, ultimately he will get an ulcer. This is how coincidental, random programming in our childhood especially can create these random circuits that are actually not efficient and at the end point will result in disease. I say childhood because that's the time of our life when new circuits are forming with great frequency because we are learning things. We are born, we don't know anything. And then we are exposed to so many stimuli, so many things to learn that we are actively forming new circuits. Now you can imagine the chances of these random bell-like structures getting part of these circuits is so high. And therefore, when we examine these circuits in the childhood and see their confluence or connect with the present disease, we are coming to the homeopathic remedy of the similar man. You might question and naturally wonder that how is a person going to remember what happened in his childhood? Like he's 5 years old, 6 years old, we're not going to remember. For this, I read a very, very beautiful experiment, and of course you probably know the information that came out of that experiment. Like all other interesting genius leaps in understanding of science, this was an accidental one. In a big teaching hospital in the US, they were performing a surgery for epilepsy. Like other brain surgeries, this was an alert surgery where the patient was not completely put to sleep. Accidentally, when the surgeon brushed a part of the person's brain, he started speaking. I'm 5 years old. There's a tree, a swing, a rubber place to sit. It's cracked. I'm wearing dungarees and swinging and swinging and swinging so high. And tuck, it breaks under me. I fell down, got hurt, crying. They put a band-aid with a cartoon. And my father carried me and fed me ice cream in the kitchen. The surgeon was surprised. He said, what's this happening? Because not only does the person seem to remember something of 5 years old, but he's seeming to say it as if he's actually seeing that in front of him. This led to him writing a paper and set up an entire research from other hospitals around that began with patients' consent to stimulate different parts of the brain during these alert surgeries to see what's happening. The result was amazing, and now of course perhaps we even take it for granted that every scene of our life from birth to now is recorded in our brain. They found 3-4 main areas which act almost like folders on our computer, recording scenes and short YouTube videos of our life as it happened. Not just the theme, not just the main gist, but the entire visual, sound, sensation, so that when that area is stimulated, you feel like you're almost there and can see and smell and taste. This is something we have experienced in life, where while speaking to somebody or randomly seeing or smelling or tasting or hearing something, it suddenly triggers off this visual scene memory in our brain, and we say, you remember, we'd gone there 15 years ago. There was this house, there was a tree, behind that we had gone, and then there was that ditch and our ball fell into that. And it's like every detail, including the papers lying on the side, becomes so clear. Often we or the person feel, I don't remember what happened yesterday. How is it that I remember all these details so clearly? As we understand that this is there in our brain, all we need to do it is to pick these circuits, is to access these memories. It's very easy. These memories are all triggered by the 5 senses. Hence, as we stay with the process of the 5 senses, these flashback memories of childhood are clearer and more frequent for the patient. Through these, we begin to see these circuits that were formed. We now recognize the bell in each individual patient's circuit, as we see how it links to their present problem, both in organ, pathology, and symptom. As we do this, we recognize that this bell is nothing but the source of the simillimum. I will explain how to take the patient into that circuit zone where clearly we can see the circuits and their scenes from their childhood. How to pick which is the bell, which is the remedy of the case. Come and join me at Toronto on 6th, 7th, 8th of March to go with me on this journey to watch the circuits in the patients and how to pick the bell, that is the simillimum, in each of these cases.